acting straight. It's like the same wrong way.
My name is Paul James. I host English News.
And the Golden Angel Award ceremony.
Hello, dear folks, my lovely audience. Welcome to the East-West Show, the right or wrong show. Some even call it the truth, nothing but the truth. This show is sponsored by Wolfers, the artistic jewelries of Belgium. A prominent life must be matched by the palace-grade jewelries. Wolfers, the Belgian royal family designated brand of jewelries with 400 years of glorious history and hand-forged by 10 generations of the master craftsmen, a testimony to the spectacular share of the royal glory. Wolfers, the palace-grade artistic jewelries. So starts the show. Yes, today with me is my good friend, Mr. Mark Ang. He is the founder and the CEO of Asian Industry B2B. Right. So, Mark, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Jack. So good to see you.
And as you can see, the subject for today is that are our kids misled? I believe we have a good reason to believe our kids are being misled at this very moment as time goes on, starting at age 3, as early as they can tell colors. This is the subject for today. So with Mark, let's get started. How did you get involved with the subject?
So I was actually approached sometime in the fourth quarter of last year by a good friend who is on a trustee of one of the Orange County school boards. And when she came to my house, she had expressed a lot of frustration with what was going through in regards to a framework that was being shoved through to the California Department of Education, changes to the curriculum. This framework is very important because it is basically the blueprint for all of the school districts who will choose their own curricula. Okay, so please understand that the framework is basically a guideline, but it's a very powerful guideline because the teachers take their cues from this framework. Now, this framework had 2 public open periods, and the last one just ended. Okay, these 2 public periods were open for comment, and supposedly it's a transparent process. But let me tell you, the Chinese community should be very outraged about this, because this open period and all of these changes were made and were only available in English. So it was not even available in Spanish. So that to me, I was alerted about that last quarter, and I said, yeah, that's something that's very, very shocking to me. Now, when things, I throw a lot of events, and our organization's very busy. I just kind of put it on the back burner, but I knew I had to address it, and I had a faith committee meeting, just to mobilize local churches and local parents in Santa Ana more than a month ago now. And when I had that meeting, I was shocked to see about 40 parents from all different ethnicities, from Spanish, the Mexican parents, to Korean, to Chinese were in attendance to express their frustration now that the word is getting out about this, these changes. And these changes are very graphic, Jack. These changes are, are really pushing the envelope as far as the sex ed component in middle school, and then introducing gender identity or transgender into the kindergarten to 3rd grade. So that's how, as a business leader and as a community person, I was alerted, and I became very almost like pushed to act on this, because I myself feel that this is an overreach.
All right, thank you very much for updating us with this. But what I can say is that I do agree with you with 80% of it, because it is a big issue. It is a really, really a big issue. The part that I disagree with you is that literally it is not Chinese Americans in particular should be informed or should be related, right? It concerns everybody of the United States. We are equally concerned.
Right? Absolutely.
It is equally important to every single American about this change.
Correct.
Right. Okay. Now, as to why this whole thing, no Chinese version, that's a different issue. That leads to elsewhere talking about equally informed, to be equally
Correct.
informed. That's a different area. When we have time, we will discuss about it
Sure.
another day. All right. But right now, let's focus to be equally related, to see the same importance as everybody sees in this issue, though. I want to remind my audience that we are talking about something super important. It's more important than your portfolio, than your houses, than anything, than everything, because they are teaching our kids from the age of kindergarten, only 3 years of age, to the gender mystifying direction whatsoever. All right, and we will touch it as we go. So that's how I want to address myself on behalf of my team, my crew, that we strongly want to make a manifesto that we want to be alert of this whole thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead. You go ahead. What's there?
So there's quite a few things to be very shocked about. I think really what's happening is the curriculum that is being presented. So the school districts do have a choice on what curriculum gets presented, but because of the framework, there's a few that are getting more airtime and are addressing a lot of these laws. For example, there's a law right now that you cannot speak of anything LGBT in a negative way. So it always has to be presented in a positive way, which I'm fine with. But you know, one of the things that's important to know, and my concern as a business person, is really, are we focusing too much on this stuff versus our academics, versus our, you know, our math skills and our English skills, communication skills, our knowledge of history. I mean, all of these things are at the expense of this. And to me, what I noticed, because I sat in the Capistrano School District, had a meeting to approve the curriculum just a few weeks ago, and I attended that and voiced my opinion in a public forum that day. And what I heard was there were 36 people that spoke. About 27, 28 of those people were in opposition to this. And one of the things that's cited that was very powerful was when a little girl came up from 8th grade and she said, "There's enough sex talk already." She is getting harassed by the boys in her class. So the more that you talk about this, the more, you know, in the classroom, the more it becomes a charged environment, which could be dangerous for our young children. And, you know, is it okay to, you know, put this at younger and younger ages? That is something that I'm concerned, because these two books that I brought today are really being pushed to the kindergartners, the third graders.
Let's start with the gender recognition. How about that?
Okay.
Right? Okay. And I see you say about the curriculum twice, and I see also that you have some textbooks, right? So why don't we start with the books?
Sure.
And let's see what they are trying to input to our 3-year brain about the sex gender thing.
Yes.
Right? So let's see the book.
Yeah, so here is a book that is, you know, part of the curriculum and a recommended reading.
Who are you?
Yes, Who Are You? A guide to the Kid's Guide to Gender Identity. And as you can see, this book is very, very full of bright images and looks like your typical children's book with lots of colors. But as you can see, there's a lot of rainbow imagery and really normalizing.
No hurry, take your time.
Yes.
Let's see how step by step
Yeah.
they are leading the kids.
So the kids are getting...
I heard they say that you are not what you think you are.
Yes.
You are not what they name what you are. For example, at the baby birth, they always ask, is it a girl or a boy?
Yes.
As a matter of fact, a girl might not be a girl, a boy might not be a boy. They started from that chapter. Am I right?
Yes, and actually they go all the way to the beginning, and you can see this page says, when babies are born, people ask, is it a boy or a girl?
Yeah, all right.
Okay, so as you can see, they're trying to show that that's a question in itself. And therefore, you know, and it says babies can't talk, so grown-ups make an assumption or a guess by looking at their bodies.
All right.
Okay, and eventually this leads to more and more questions about that question in itself, which then eventually comes out to a statement that the book
let's see
makes.
that killer, yeah.
So this is a very important page in that book where it says, some people say there are only two genders, but there are really many genders. So this book is making a very definitive statement that there are multiple genders beyond boy and girl. And then it says, you are who you say you are because you know you best.
Question. Stop right there. Question, all right? Certain knowledge refers to certain age to be understood. Am I right? Okay. For example, a 3-year-old only could understand in the category of a 3-year-old knowledge. If you ask a 3-year-old who Albert Einstein is, what he did, well, you may be asking the right question to the wrong person. Even though Albert Einstein was a great man on the global earth, right? Now, you're asking a 3-year-old, there are many genders, more than genders than boys and girls are, to whom their understanding, or they do not even understand the difference between boys and girls.
Well, everyone's at
Are
different
you
levels.
confusing them?
Absolutely. Well, I think there's different levels, right? I mean, you know, every kid develops differently, and some may be able to comprehend certain things, but for me, this very much gets their own version of the facts.
All right, let's stop right there. All right, let's conclude this segment. This program is exclusively sponsored by Wolfers Jewelry's testimony to the spectacular share of the royal glory. Wolfers, the palace grade jewelries. So we'll be right back.
Everything expected, straight. It's like it seems wrong way.
My name is Paul James. I'm host of the news.
And a golden angel award ceremony.
Hello, dear friends, my lovely audience. Welcome back to the East West Show, exclusively sponsored by Wolfers Jewelries. Wolfers and the Belgium royal family designated brand. A prominent life must be matched by the palace-grade jewelries. Wolfers, the Belgium royal family designated brand of jewelries with 400 years of glorious history and hand-forged by 10 generations of the master craftsman, a testimony to the spectacular share of the royal glory. Wolfers, the palace-grade artistic jewelries. Let's start the show. With Mark, my dear friend, the founder and the CEO of the Asian industry B2B, who does not only pay attention to the industrial area, however, school district issues are also his concern. Now we're talking about Orange County School District and making a curriculum system to teach the gender identity starting from age of 3, from kinder level. So back to you. You were talking about their book, right? Go ahead.
Yeah, so we were just chatting about this book, and you know, from a young age with colorful images, and really, to me, putting up stuff that is questionable. And you know, I know in this environment we want to be very respectful of those who identify as different genders and sexual orientations, absolutely. However, my question is this age appropriate? And you asked that same question. You asked, is someone in kindergarten able to understand and comprehend this stuff?
Yes, that's a good angle. My concern is that being right or wrong is one issue, all right? being at the appropriate time to the appropriate kids is the other.
Correct.
For example, in my eye, a 3-year-old might have problems in recognizing oil from water. For example, oil, milk, and water for a 3-year-old, right? And then I believe if they can make a clear distinction among the three, they are the best kid. I give them a full score already. Now you're teaching them there are Atlantic Ocean, Pacific Ocean, Antarctica, and there are Australia, New Zealand, where last week or not, yesterday just had a massacre happened that killed 49 innocent people. For all this information to the kid, the 3-year-old, never forget. So are you doing the right thing or wrong thing?
Well, I think the question is, are we focusing on the right things? You know, I think as a society, there is a pervasive case of narcissism where people are so focused in on themselves and their feelings and not looking at the world around them. I was always taught as a child, and I even grew up, you know, as a millennial, in a more narcissistic society than ever because of television. But I had parents that pushed back on that and always said, think of others, be respectful, do this and that. And I think now we have a society that is glorifying all of this stuff. And, you know, for me, it's not age appropriate. And it's also damaging because these kids are not learning math or English.
Let us slow down a little bit. Okay, now, I want you and I, between you and I, of course, with my audience invited. By the way, if you want to express yourself, always write to tellmydj@gmail.com. Tellmydj, one word, @gmail.com. Or you can even write to me, my personal email, CSIjack@hotmail.com or jack@edimedia.com. Let's all talk about it. Let's discuss.
Yes,
right?
I would love to hear from the community.
Sure.
And in fact, let me say this. I am throwing an event on March 28th in El Monte at the Longo Toyota. And I would love, and we're providing free dinner. So it's a bilingual presentation, so it will be Mandarin and in English.
Please have me invited.
Yes,
and
you are more than welcome. With a
probably
VIP.
I'll dispatch a crew to go over there
Yes.
to cover it. All right. Okay. Now to the issue, to the point. All right. The point being that doing the right thing or wrong thing is one issue. Doing it properly to the right party at the right age is the other. Right? So now, I want you and I, with my audience, all confirm one thing. Even though they are telling the truth, they are telling the truth to the wrong group of human beings. There are only three.
I question
They
that
are
truth.
not. They are not supposed to understand that much. Okay, this is question number one. You and I, can we confirm that?
What statement are we confirming?
No. Confirming you are telling a issue, even though it's right, to the wrong group of human beings.
That part,
who are only three.
I agree that it's age inappropriate and not fit
Age
for the audience.
appropriate, right? Okay, now.
That I agree with.
So, do I know that, you know that, and my audience know that? Do they know that? Do they know that they are telling somebody who will not understand the importance of it?
I think that goes back to a lot of what we talked about with Common Core
and,
too, right?
And that automatically leads to my third question. Knowingly, they are talking to a bunch of 3-year kids, though, to something that's super important. For example, when you refer to LGBT, you always refer to it in a positive way. Could that be understood, interpreted by a 3-year-old? No. All right? Okay, now, knowingly they are doing that, and they are still doing it. So are they actually doing the job, or they are...
I think
they are making another issue.
I think California is slipping. I think the results speak for itself. We're not the leader in education because we are, I believe, focusing on the wrong things. We instituted...
No. You're leading me elsewhere. I am only, let's focus on this point, right? Knowingly, they are teaching something that could not be understood by a 3-year-old, and yet they are still doing it.
Yes.
They do it for political reasons.
Correct.
They do it not education as politics.
Yes. Politics
That is my point.
over education.
That is my point. That is my point.
I mean, here's another book here, A Day in the Life of Marlon Bundo, which is a rabbit, and this gets into gay marriage themes, which, you know, shows the people that are not for gay marriage
Hold
in
on.
a very
leave
negative
this
light.
Leave this a little bit
Yeah.
later. Let's see what else in the book, in this gender identity.
You kind of
book.
looked over it. So which part did you feel was what we need to shine the light on? I mean, to me, the one where it says there are more than two genders as a fact was interesting to me and felt to be the most alarming.
Yeah. Of course, we can still meander a little bit here to talk about.
Okay.
Because we want to make a point. The point being that, like the name of the show, from the east to west, we want to talk about only tell the right from wrong. Right? We tell the truth, nothing but the truth.
Absolutely.
The truth is that, yes, there are more genders than two. I agree.
You agree
Yes.
with that? Okay.
Yeah, I agree. Yes, there are more genders than two, maybe three, maybe four, right? Maybe something else that I don't know of. But is it too early? Is it unnecessary to start teaching the 3-year-old?
I think at the end of the day, if we are going to, I mean, here's a page here that's pretty powerful. It says these are a few of the other genders, like trans, genderqueer, non-binary, gender fluid, transgender, gender neutral, agender, neutrois, bigender, third gender, and two-spirit. So,
How many? Tell me
yes,
how many of those?
That's about 8.
Tell me how many?
or-
8, right? 8.
8 or 10, yeah, something like that.
For a 3-year-old who has problem count to 1 to 5,
Yes,
they're telling them there are 8 genders.
yes, 8 genders right here on this
Now-
page right here.
Okay, now let's flip off the child play page, right? So, and they are doing a political game. They are playing a political game.
Yeah,
They
let's
are
call it
doing
what it is. It is.
politics, okay?
That's right.
Now, you tell me, to your knowledge, what kind of politics is that?
I believe that, and the proof's in the pudding, okay? You have this very interesting nonprofit called Advocates for Youth that has written up a lot of the curriculum. So I forget which one it is. Was it the 3 R's or Be Real, Be Ready? One of those 2 curricula is drafted up by Advocates for Youth, which is a nonprofit. I encourage everyone to look them up. They are actually a 501c3 that promotes the promotion of youth sexuality. So this is a special interest group that is actually pushing, and I think there's a conflict of interest that they're writing up the curriculum, and you know, at least in this area.
So that might be the political game,
Yes.
right? And I believe there is a motivation there. There is a motivation behind, and the motivation might be humongous. Might be humongous, right? They are starting it all the way from my 3-year-old kid. You know, you're talking about, well, next 80 years, they will grow into the kind of man or woman what they want them to be, right? This is a critical, very critical. My dear friends, you're watching the East-West show, exclusively sponsored by Wolfers. Wolfers are testimony to the spectacular and a share of the royal glory. Wolfers is the artistic jewelry. Let's take a moment now. We'll be right back, please.
Everything
We have
expected,
continue
straight.
to work
It's
on
like
it now.
seems wrong way.
Her name is called James. I'm
And a golden angel award ceremony.
Hello, dear friends, lovely audience. Welcome back to the East-West show, exclusively sponsored by Wolfers. A prominent life must be matched with the palace-grade jewelries. Well, first, the Belgium royal family designated brand of jewelries with 400 years of glorious history and hand-forged by 10 generations of the master craftsmen, a testimony to the spectacular and a share of the royal glory. Well, first, the palace-grade artistic jewelries. Now start the show with Mark Ang, founder and CEO of the Asian American Industry B2B. We're talking about Orange County School District.
This is actually statewide too.
Yeah, statewide. All right, well, starting with Orange County, it's now getting statewide about adopting the curriculum. Of course, they are now at the opening period, or call it the transparent period, hearing opinions. And it is important, it is rather important, you express yourself, you apply yourself by your constitutional right to speak freely, to say you're for it, you're against it.
And before we move on to the next topic, I really want to stress that this to me is a parental rights issue. As a parent, you actually do not have the right to opt out of any gender identity education. So anything along this line of gender, you as a parent cannot opt out of. It is embedded within the curriculum.
And also, it is a child right issue.
Correct.
Because you are under no right to teach me what you want to teach. And because I am still being with my parents as my guardian, though, my guardian being my teacher,
Yes.
right? So it is subject to them to teach what they want to teach.
Yes.
Am I right? Yeah. Otherwise, you're violating the kids' right.
That's right.
So
that's why a lot of parents have chosen the homeschool route, which is something that I never imagined 20 years ago. I said, oh, that's always the weird kids. But now I would take my kids out of school and homeschool them at this point.
Well, to be honest with you, I'm only too old to have kids of 3-year-old, right? Because I'm older than that, right? So if I did have a 3-year-old, for example, my grandbaby, I would not dare to have them test the system.
Absolutely.
Because they're misleading.
That's right.
Okay, now, so back to the other book that you mentioned about teaching same-sex marriage.
Yes, and that's not the problem, that's the law right now. So the issue here is, I thought this book was very slanted. Okay, you have Marlon Bundo, who is a rabbit, and in that book, you know, Marlo has a lot of other animal friends, and 2 of his animal friends are going to get are males, and they fell in love and got married. Okay, so there is a clear, you know, marriage there. Now, one of the things that was that I really feel is slanted about this is that anyone against that marriage, maybe for their religious views, is vilified as the villain. And this book itself creates a narrative of that, of anyone that disagrees because of religious reasons is automatically vilified. And there's too much of that in society right now. And as you can see, these 2 books are really an example of the indoctrination that these kids are receiving, and too much talk about this stuff instead of learning math and history and English, science.
I remember with you and with my other guests, I have conducted more than 2 dozens of the shows on the same-sex marriage. And I stated over and over again, and I still like to reiterate myself that I'm not against it, right? Just do not drag me along. All right?
And I think this
is my position. Let me finish. I do not disagree with what you agree, right? What you say, this is legal or not legal. Just please do me a favor, do not drag me along.
Correct.
Yeah, am I breaking any laws?
And at the end of the day, I think that community wants more rights than everyone else, wants more airtime in the curriculum, wants more exposure. And at the end of the day, is that what our society needs to be focusing in on? don't we have greater ideals than that? How about the ideals of, family, the ideals of, living for something greater than yourself and giving back to the community? These things are being put on the back burner to celebrate narcissism and focus on yourself and your impulses and,
Of course, we have better stuff to teach.
Yes.
We have lots of better stuff to teach.
There's so much.
Right? I recall in my kinder days, and I had a textbook or color book, or color book of what is a raven, a black raven, a bird, big bird, right? It has a jar, right? The jar has water in it, but his beak was too short to get to the water. So, this raven put the small rocks to the jar, so the level of water goes up, so started drinking. That kind of book.
That is so innovative and smart.
Yeah, that kind of book. And also, there's a big jar, jar of a big enough fish tank for fish. Big jar for fish in the courtyard, right? And one kid got in, getting drowned, right? So for the other kid, who is smaller, even smaller than the kid dropped in, got a big rock, bam, broke the jar, so got the kid saved.
Yeah.
Those kind of stories.
Yes. And fables.
In America, do we not have that kind of story anymore?
Yeah. And really at that age, right, you're saying, even you looked over it and you said some of these words are probably not going to be absorbed. It's the lesson. Ultimately, there's one takeaway from the books, right? Each book has a takeaway. So instead of the takeaway being something like that beautiful story that you just shared about the raven, that was being resourceful and doing things and being smart, or caring about their family, caring about the community. I mean, there's so much of those books that I read that shaped my value system. And, of course, my teenage years.
Another story I recall when I was 4, and from the textbook, not textbook, color book, just a color book. Color book says, and the guy, 4-year-old kid, right? Daddy gave him a bunch of pears, right? There were big ones, there were small ones. And there's a family. He offered all the big ones to others. He himself picked for the smallest one. Ask him, why you pick for the smallest one? He said, because I'm the smallest. So that kind of a story.
Yes.
That kind of story.
Yes.
Positivity I'm talking about.
Yes, and shaping our ideals to think of others' needs, and especially important needs and caring for others versus yourself and the glorification of yourself. Which
We
is
can
what
even
this
come down to vocabularies. I've never had a chance. Probably we should go check with some psychologists or psychologists, right, to ask, in the mind of a 3-year-old, when his or her vocabulary is concerned, do they know more the difference between girls and the boys, or can they tell what the word the gender is, or the word of gender identity? Are you confusing them, asking a 3-year-old
I think
the
given
2
enough
words
time,
of gender identity?
Given enough time, people will learn. Okay, I think that if you expose, it's just like the addition tables or multiplication tables. When I was a kid, my mom made me repeat all of them, and then now it's like 1 + 6 is 7. I know that because you keep repeating enough times.
Engraved
yes,
in
through
your
rote
mind,
and repetition. At that age, children learn rote. You repeat it, and then it becomes. Is this the type of stuff that we want in them? And is that what we're prioritizing? That's my issue. Is the prioritization of all the wrong things.
Yes, you're right. I agree. Even though what they do is right, right? We would have to have a prioritization to consider what is more important.
Yes.
To teach the kids, a 3-year-old, with a morality.
Jack.
With a morality.
Morality, yes. And Jack.
Or to teach them with the confusion of this society.
Yes.
Even we adults get confused.
Yes.
I would never, till these days, I would never imagine a male couple what they do for sex. To be honest with you. And I can't even imagine what they do because I'm so dull. And I have no imagination in that whole area. So this is a confusion subject even to adults at my age. You're teaching them with a 3-year-old?
Yes. And Jack, there's an opportunity cost. The opportunity is the lack of that time that's spent on learning math.
Let's talk about the opportunity when we come back. My dear friends, you're watching the East-West show, the Right or Wrong show, or the Truth, Nothing But the Truth show, exclusively sponsored by Wolfers, the Belgian royal family, designated the name brand. Wolfers, a testimony to spectacular and a share of the royal glory. So stay with us. We'll be right back, please.
Everything expected, straight. It's like it seems wrong way.
My name is Paul James. I host this news.
And a golden angel award ceremony.
Hello, dear friends, lovely audience. Welcome back to the East-West show, exclusively sponsored by Wolfers. Prominent life must be matched with the palace-grade jewelries. Wolfers, the Belgian royal family designated brand of jewelries with 400 years of glorious history and hand-forged by 10 generations of the master craftsman, a testimony to the spectacular and a share of the royal glory. Wolfers, the palace-grade artistic jewelries. Start with the show. Back to the show. With Mark Ang, my dear friend, an activist, founder and CEO of Asian American Industry B2B. We are talking about an early education at kindergarten to the 3 years old, teaching them about sex and sex gender identity, and teaching them about same-sex marriage, and villainize everybody who goes against it, who doesn't agree with it,
Who may even have a minor disagreement.
who even have a minor disagreement with it. So, well, we need to talk about it. Plus, and there is a discussion period of right now, and you are welcome to write to us to let us know your opinions. Just to say, just write it to tellmydj at gmail.com or jack at edimedia.com, or even my personal email, csijack at hotmail.com. We collect your ideas, and probably we can form a audience group. How about that?
Yeah, and actually I invite them, especially if you want to collect everyone's statements, and we'll present that at our March 28th meeting in El Monte at the Longo Toyota.
All right.
And because it's a community forum, there are a lot
What
of
time?
parents.
What time?
It's at 6 p.m. Please come to the Longo Toyota's training room in El Monte, and we will serve dinner as well, because I want parents to be very comfortable.
The very side by I-10?
Yes, right by I-10, exactly,
I
in the
see, I see.
605. So
Okay.
please come by, and that's going to be one of 3 meetings that I'm going to
March 28th,
March 28th.
6:30.
Yes, 6:30. So
All right.
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock, please
All right.
gather, and then we'll start promptly at 6:30 for the program. But I really want to stress that you have a voice, parents, okay? We can influence our school districts to de-emphasize certain things. Because by law, we're supposed to talk about it, but what is the mix, right? Are we going to have 90% sex talk, 10% academics, or are we going to, right?
All right,
Or
someday it
yeah.
might happen.
Yeah, and that's
Someday
kind
it
of where
might
it's
happen,
headed, to
right?
be honest.
Of course, I'm learning. To be honest, I might want to share with you that I'm learning. I'm shifting myself from a disagreement to agreement now, right? I agree to what they do. I agree to what the law says. Of course, provided I will not break the law myself, right? Okay.
Absolutely.
Yet I have the freedom of speech. I have my constitutional right to say on behalf of myself. Oh, by the way, I may want to make a disclaimer myself, and I seriously say, whatever I say, whatever I said before, and what I'm saying, what I will say, represent only myself. Neither the show nor the organization that hosts the show, right? So I totally surrender. Hey, do what you want to do.
Sure.
Right? Now,
Everyone's right.
okay, now, I only want to reserve one area. Please keep our kids free from politics. How about that?
Yes.
So
I
how
agree with
do you recommend, how do you comment my request? This is my last resort I really want to hold on to, which is our kid. Keep them natural.
Unfortunately, we have a system now.
Keep
and
them natural.
California Department of Education is putting through this stuff, and in itself, the curriculum, the framework, all of these things are very slanted towards a political agenda. Let's be very honest and upfront about it. It's like I said, today we dissected what these books are about, and that's really what I wanted people to see, that these laws are in place, but they defy common sense.
Let's see how they villainize those who
disagree.
Who disagree with the same-sex
As you can see, you have a huge...
Can you read it to my audience?
Yeah,
please?
so here is the villain, who is this very angry person with a red tie, and he's on a podium, and he's an insect. And it says, "Wait," said a scary voice. We looked around and saw that the scary voice was coming from the stink bug. Let me tell you a little bit about the stink bug. The stink bug was in charge. He was important. None of the other animals could quite work out why he was in charge or how he was important, but he was. And that meant he made the rules. That meant all the animals listened to him, even though he was, and this is true, very stinky. And his one statement on this page is, "You can't get married." Okay? So this is one of the things that, I know that the left likes to vilify our president, and I'm not the biggest supporter, but for me, I see the good. I see the good and the bad.
Neither am I. Neither am I.
And for me, when I read a statement like that, that is defying laws and authority. And we all know that the president doesn't have ultimate power to do anything that he wants. We don't live in a dictatorship in this country. There are rules in place. And as you can see every day, if you're an adult following politics, our presidents and our leaders have to work with legislatures, and they have to work with other people who share the power, because we have a balance of power in this country. Now, for them to paint that, it's, to me, that felt very subliminally, and even with the red tie and everything, it was very much, a political agenda. You wore pink today, I wore red and black.
Almost red.
Yeah, but this isn't red. So yes, it's amazing that, that agenda and those people, because they have free reign, because we are a one-party state, are able to go all the way into our school curriculum and make indoctrination there for the next generation to, and this is why I've seen younger people, whenever they hear a different point of view that's not in line with theirs, they explode and they vilify. Okay, yeah, so really, I think a political agenda is controlling it all the way into our education system. Elections do have consequences. This is going to continue getting pushed through, maybe to more and more alarming levels, because they've inched their way to more and more indoctrination, which actually steps on a lot of people with different points of view and a different viewpoint. And there is no diversity in viewpoint anymore.
So I want you to provide my audience some basic understandings about to what extent are they doing, or have they done the whole thing at all? Ready to launch?
Yes.
Or
So
ready to launch?
very good question. So right now, the 2 open periods have ended. So people who wanted to provide their feedback, I believe the second one ended in January.
Oh, ended already?
Yes, so we're already deep in this, and this has been building. There's many grassroots groups that have come together, and I've gotten to know them in the last few months and year. that are very concerned, that are
Are you
watching
saying that
this.
they are not listening anymore?
They're not listening. And in fact, there were so many conservative points of view that were, different, that were
So
against
are you
this.
saying the next thing would be a lawsuit?
That is a possibility. So we are looking at different options on that. But I won't, I know that certain groups are, Pacific Justice Institute and other groups are pursuing those routes. But it's a lot of technicalities, because one of the technicalities is you cannot opt out of gender identity education. However, you can opt out of comprehensive sex education, and you can opt out of HIV prevention. Certain districts have bundled the three, causing people to opt out of all of them, but that in itself is still illegal because you cannot opt out of gender identity education.
In other words, the parents' right, basic right, has been
Yes,
has
one
been
can see it
taken
that
away
way.
one by one.
Correct.
Right?
One can see it that way. Absolutely. And so these are the types of things that, this has been going on for a while, and I commend so many of these great groups that are out there, grassroots groups, including the ones that came to our faith meeting. We had quite a few there.
Has anybody in the legislature support where you are?
Yes, so there is actually a law, the California Healthy Youth Act. You might want to look at that law and research that if you're interested in getting to know more of the, there are a lot of mandates in there. So we are working with Senator Mike Morrell and Senator Ling Chang, and both of them are the sponsor and co-sponsor of a bill to, to curtail some of this stuff. However, it's not likely because they're in a super minority, being in the party out of power. So I'm a realist. I know this is going to get pushed through, okay? And one of the things in the movement, everyone can have they do what they want. There have been some sit-outs. There's also a bus tour happening the same day that I'm doing my event on the 28th. Those two things, I encourage people who are deep in the issue to.
So what do you want to do? What do you plan to do with the 28th event?
It's okay because I am tending to a local audience here of Chinese parents.
I know, but for entertainment purpose?
To learn. So we're going to have two very important speakers at that event. We're going to have Gina.
And you were saying they have concluded already. It's too late.
Yes.
To
So I
vote out
see no
anything.
point. I see no point except to educate the community. For me, my plan is AIB2B, our organization, is ready to sponsor any gathering of people, and we will pay for the food. So we will be a food sponsor as long as you get a venue, whether it's as small as 10 people in your living room, or if you can get a room of 50 in a conference room, or if you get an actual venue like we're doing in El Monte, which can fit over 100 people. So I'm telling you that we as an organization will sponsor educational materials, we will sponsor the flyers, we will sponsor the food. Okay, and that's what we're willing to do to get the
All
word
right,
out.
it's good to learn that. Okay, my dear audiences, we're time out. You're watching the East-West show, exclusively sponsored by Wolfers. Wolfers, the Belgium royal family designated brand, testimony to the spectacular and a share of the royal glory. So, see you again next time. Today with me is my good friend Mark Ang of Asian Industry B2B. We're talking about one thing, that our kids are being misled. It's a very, very dangerous situation, and yet we are in it. So once again, our thanks goes to Wolfers and our exclusive sponsor.